I don't know, but you know what? I realized after I started wearing the first World Series ring, which this is it, is that it's more about what it represents as opposed to having to wear it. And that means a whole lot to me. And then, of course, you see the players out there, and that always gets to me is, knowing how all they did was the best they could, but they just never looked up. It was special. Yeah.
And where does the new one go?
Around Allie's neck, she said. I don't know, but it's, again, like I mentioned out there, you're talking about the Yankees, and you get recognition like this. The Hall of Fame, no question. I mean, that's the top of the hill. But the New York Yankees, whether you like them or hate them or somewhere in between, they are respected for what they represent in regards to sports and baseball and everything else. And I remember the first time Mickey Mantle stepped in the batter's box. I was a 20-year-old kid catching in spring training, and then I looked up, and he seemed like about 10 foot tall, goosebumps the size of, mountains. It was just, this is Mickey Mantle. Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Andrew.
Joe, when you look back to when you were hired and then to today, how would you describe, what today means to you, from that perspective of that first day when you were the Yankee manager?
Well, when you finally allow yourself to look back, and, as far as when I was first hired, and I know there was a lot of controversy involved, it never bothered me because this was going to be an opportunity for however long it was going to be. I was going to manage for an owner who, just had a commitment to this city about winning, and I knew I was going to find out if I could do this job or not. So just after being fired 3 times, you start questioning yourself about the way you do things, and you think you're sort of doing what you felt you should as a manager, and then coming over here and just having it validated, because I thought about changing, and then it's an old story now. I was reading Bill Parcells, one of his management books, and he said, if you believe in what you're doing, stay with it. And I just closed the book, and I just, it just hit. I think we sort of had the two forces come together that seemed to match up pretty good. Plus the Yankees. I inherited a ball club that, was going to go to the postseason a couple of straight years, but we had the work stoppage, and then, they got knocked out by Seattle. And everybody laments about getting knocked out by Seattle. I said, didn't bother me a bit, because I may not have been here if that wasn't the case.
To your right, Joe, flat, against the wall.
Joe, how
All the way to your right.
you
Joe, how difficult is it, or was it, for you to separate yourself from your relationship with the Yankees with the job you have now?
I don't understand about
I mean, you're in a totally different world now, an objective, neutral job
Right.
in the commission office, separating that from your obvious emotional attachment to the
Yeah,
Yankees.
I have to. I mean, there are a lot of things I had to do as a manager, where you had to, cut some players loose that they're your favorites. You have to be loyal to if I was managing, you have to be loyal to the 25 before you can be loyal to the 1. And then in my job now, the only thing I try to keep in mind and try to, I guess, communicate is the fact I'm only trying to do what I think is fair. That's all. I mean, I've always tried to come down on the fair side. By always successful, not necessarily, but that was always my intention.
Right next to Clap, Dave.
Hey, Joe, over
Back
here to your right.
All the way to your
Next to
right.
Clap. But with all you've accomplished, Joe, do you look at the game now the way things are and think that, you might be one of the last people to do what you did, just for the longevity part, for the number of championships and the success?
Yeah, I was mentioning, I think it was to Michael Kay, how much tougher it is to do, what Joe Girardi's doing, the Yankee manager, than I had. And, I think this game, and it's always a concern, because I've always been one that always felt it was a team sport. But there's so much individual accomplishment that's trumpeted. Not that that shouldn't be the case in a lot of situations. But this group I had, as far as nobody really cared who went to the All-Star game. Nobody really cared who got the headline in the newspaper. It was all about just rolling up their sleeves and pretty much letting me decide on, the direction we're going. And again, I wasn't always right, but they always respected the fact that it was the decision. And I think it is going to be very hard to do what our Yankee teams accomplished. I mean, we're a little impatient. We don't want to wait for players to get to the big leagues to talk about their superstardom. We want to talk about it when they're in a futures game or in the minor leagues. And I think it's dangerous. I really do. I don't think we're doing these players any favors. Not that they won't be worthy at some point, but I think it's unfair to put that kind of spotlight on them probably before they're matured in this game, because it takes a while to really get a taste for what this game is about and to recognize somebody other than yourself. I think it is. Of course, I had a unique group. I don't think you could have, plucked 25 guys out and said, okay, even though it was that time that you were going to get that. But I had a unique group that, just left their egos at the door. I mean, they had this inner conceit where they felt it, but they didn't have to, show everybody that that's who they were, And I think it's tougher now. I really do. I mean, I use the term entitlement, but I don't think it's baseball. I think it's generational in a lot of ways. So I can't just say in our sport it's this way. I just think I think there's a lot of education that needs to happen, and in my case, in my job, I'm trying to find a way where I can help contribute to that, and that's why I try to stay close with managers and even the Players Association, because I think it's just very, very important for the future of our sport to continue to have the respect for the game that it requires and it needs. It's earned, I think, all these years.
Billy, front row to your right.
Yeah, Joe, it's kind of a follow-up to that. You would never like to, when you were managing during your active career, you said you never like to think about what your accomplishments were and Hall of Fame and all of that other stuff. But now, when you look back now, do you get a sense of the magnitude of winning 4 championships in 5 years?
Yeah.
And the fact that probably nobody will ever do that again.
Yeah, and then 3 outs away from winning 4 in a row, and I mean, that was, when you think about 3 in a row, and then we were on the, just right on the edge of winning 4 in a row, although we were struggling especially that last game. But again, there were games I don't want to play over that we won. I mean, the second game, my first year here against Texas, and it started raining, and Palmer threw a ball away because it was slipped out of his. I mean, who wants to go through that? We'd have been down 2-0 going into Texas. So games like that keep me from wanting to say that we come out in the short end, but to have these guys not admire what they've accomplished because they still had more to accomplish was something very unique, and especially if you compare it to now. As I say, when I first came on board, they told me Paul O'Neill was selfish, and I said, well, let me take a look at this, and I realized that somebody thought he was selfish because he wanted to get a hit every time up, and it's okay with me. It was a unique group, and the interesting part, when somebody would walk into our clubhouse from another team, and it could have, high profile, like a David Justice or something like that, they didn't come in saying, well, here I am, jump on my shoulders. They come in and said, what do you want me to do? And that made it made a huge difference coming into this clubhouse. I don't think one bad egg, and it has nothing to do with David Justice, obviously, But I don't think any one person could have come in and disrupted that because there was too much quality in the clubhouse among the players. So I think if somebody had come in there and, tried to pound his chest, they would have taken care of it.